All right, what's up guys? We are back with another tier list video where I am going to rank my favorite pickleball companies to my least favorite. It's been almost a full year since I did the last video, and there has been a lot of brands added to pickleball since I last made that video, so I thought it would be worth updating. Before we dive in, I do just want to say there are probably going to be a number of brands that are not in this list, and that's for a couple reasons. Either I have never hit one of their paddles, so I can't really assess anything, or they've come out with new paddles that I also haven't hit, so it's not really fair for me to talk about it. There might be a couple in here where, you know, they have something new-ish that I haven't tried or I've loosely tried, so just keep that in mind. That's why some brands are missing. I know I'm going to get some questions about it. That's why. As always, guys, the rules are pretty simple. They're my own rules. It's just my opinion on the companies. Most of it comes down to price and performance, but there are other things that will factor in like durability and whatnot, but don't take it too seriously, guys. This is just my list of what I like and don't like, so don't go too crazy with it. All right, so first off, we'll start with Electrum. I'll put them in A overall. I actually liked the Electrum Model E Elite quite a bit. If it wasn't so heavy, it's probably a paddle I really would have considered using, but it was just outside of my comfort zone. As far as the other paddles go, they're actually discontinuing the other lines and they have some other stuff in the works. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. But for the Model E Elite, which is pretty much what I'm basing this off, I'm going to go ahead and give them A. Head really hasn't done anything in a minute. They did release some new paddles, but they weren't anything to get super excited over. They really didn't generate much buzz. And honestly, at this point, the Head Radical Tour Co., while I did love it last year, and I do probably still think it's a decent paddle, I actually should go pick it up again because it might be kind of fun. But I think there's just so many good options at this point that I think I'm going to have to put Head in C. Even though I really liked that paddle last year, I think with the current offerings and how the paddle landscape is, I don't think they're probably much better than a C. I'm going to go ahead and put Gearbox in B. So I actually did think the Ultimates were pretty good, though I really didn't like the elongated Ultimate. I much preferred the smaller H model. I think they were a noticeable improvement over the previous generation, but for me personally, still kind of on that iffy area. Like, I think I could go compete with it, but definitely wouldn't be my first choice. So yeah, I'd probably put them in B. It's definitely a better paddle than what they had previously, I think, but for me, just not quite my play style. Okay, next up, we've got Onix. So they have quite a few new paddles. I have some of them, and I've gotten to hit them a tiny bit, but I don't have the raw carbon fiber paddle. But just looking at their prices alone, and the fact that I have never seen one of these in the wild outside of Matt Wright, Lucy Kovalova, or anywhere at a public park, and the price, I'm going to have to go with C. I can imagine without even hitting the raw carbon fiber one that it's probably not that impressive. I am making an assumption there, but the fact that Lucy doesn't play with it and just I've heard some things about the paddle, I don't think it's probably going to be that great. And then the other ones I think are mostly just overpriced. So Onix took a long time to update things, and then once they finally did, I think they reached too high with their price. All right, Vulcan. This one, I don't even remember where I put this last year, but I'm also going to put them in C because I remember talking about in the video that they were supposed to be coming out with some new stuff. And then for whatever reason, that just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And I still keep hearing about it and it's still delayed and we're still waiting. So I'm going to go with C because their current lineup of paddles is just not that special. The new V570s, or was it V580? I can't remember. I think it's V570. Not good paddles at all. So many issues with those. And then the 900 series, I finally got to hit one of those, and I have absolutely no idea why it's the price that it is. I'm pretty sure it has exposed polymer in the handle, some kind of spray-on grit. There's just no way that paddle's worth the price, so they're getting C. Wilson, that's going to be a hard F. So I've hit some of the Wilson paddles, and they are just not good, especially for the price. It just seems like a big brand that got into pickleball and was like, hey, let's see if we can make some money here. And they didn't make anything good. All right, XSPAK. This one, I'm going to give C. Last year, they were pretty special because they were the first to do a $100 raw carbon fiber paddle. Now those are a dime a dozen. It's not even special anymore to have a raw carbon fiber paddle for $100, especially when you have the Vatic Prism at $100 with the edge foam. That's a fantastic paddle. I mean, you can just name so many companies that have it. So at $100 flat, and you have to buy it from Amazon, and then if you want a warranty, you're not dealing with anyone in the States. I just think it's going to be a hassle, so I'm going to give them C for that. It's not that it's a bad paddle. I just think anything after buying the paddle is going to be a hassle, and the paddle these days probably just not that special. All right, Carbon, I'm going to give them a B for now. So I actually think they make great paddles. Their 1X line is fantastic, really good paddles, but as far as I can tell, they are still just breaking like crazy. Plenty of them in my area are broken. I know one guy who's gone through like 6 of them. There really hasn't been any public updates that I'm aware of about it actually being addressed. So while I think the paddles play awesome, if they break, that's just difficult to deal with. So yeah, gonna give them B. Yonex, I'm gonna go ahead and put them in C, and wow, this C list is actually growing pretty rapidly. I've tried the paddles, they're absolutely nothing special, especially not for the price. Maybe in terms of build quality, they're pretty good. I don't really have a way to properly test that, but I would never personally choose to take that paddle to a tournament, and I think in today's market, it's probably overpriced. So yeah, they just, at the moment, aren't making anything that's very standout. I'm going to go ahead and put Joola in A, and I will say that they could possibly even drop to B. So A, because I actually like the Scorpius and the Colin Johns paddle quite a bit. I didn't really care for the Perseus. I just think the sweet spot was a little too small. You know, price is kind of high. I mean, the Scorpius is the same price, but I don't know. I really liked playing with the Scorpius, and I really didn't expect that. The reason I kind of want to put them in B is I've started hearing reports about loose edge guards again. Just the quality control with Joola always seems to vary a lot. So I like the paddles that I'm going to put them, or I like them enough that I'm going to put them in A, but if I continue to hear more about these quality issues, it would probably drop to B. But it's not been widespread enough, kind of like the Carbon issues where I've been hearing, for me to actually want to drop them to B. All right, Vatic Pro, I'm going to go ahead and put them in S overall. The Flash and the V7 weren't anything that really made me go crazy, to be honest, but the Prism is a really nice paddle, and at $100, it's just so hard to ignore. I think that's the best paddle you can buy for $100 right now. It's a fantastic paddle. Alchemy, yeah, it's a little different, but it's a little bit higher on the price. I think overall the thing is they make good paddles. So like the V7 and the Prism, the originals, good paddles, great price. Prism, fantastic performance, great price. Alchemy, I'm just kind of in the middle with that one. Just kind of in the middle. So I'm going to give them S overall. I've also not been hearing about any delamination issues. That doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I keep track of most of these brands pretty well, and I haven't heard one about a Vatic in quite some time. So that's good news overall to me. All right, PaddleTek, they are also going to get a C. I feel like they have just fallen off the face of the earth. They are another company that keeps saying new paddles are coming, new paddles are coming. They've been saying that for well over a year, and here we are still with no paddles. And the pictures that I've seen of these alleged new ones, the graphics are exactly the same. Not that, that really means anything, but I'm like, man, 3 years or however many years, and you couldn't even update the graphics like a tiny bit. So yeah, I don't know. They've just been quiet. I think they've probably got some paddles in the lower price range that are pretty good, but once you start passing that 150 mark, I just think there's much, much better paddles on the market and for cheaper. So yeah, PaddleTek's an easy C. So Adidas, I'm actually going to put them in B, and I believe last year I put them in F. This year, they definitely made some nicer upgrades to their paddles. The lineup in terms of prices seems decent, but I'm mostly putting them in B because of their cheaper paddle, the Drive 2. For $70, that thing is actually a pretty solid paddle, and if you're getting into pickleball, I would say start with that paddle because for $70, it's fantastic. Assuming you don't want to go any higher than $70. If you can go up to $100, get a Vatic Pro Prism, great paddle. But yeah, with that Drive 2, I think $70, it's a pretty good paddle. Their higher priced ones, like the $200 one, the Vatic Pro, the one that Rafa Hewitt uses, I played with it. It feels decent. It's a really soft paddle. And for $200, I'm just like, it needs to do something to wow me for $200. And also the spin on that one is still terrible. In fact, the $70 one gets around 1700 RPM, which is crazy for a paddle that cheap. And then the $200 one is around 1000 RPM. So the spin just feels really bad on the court. And, you know, that's not everything, of course. But if you care about spin at all, that's not the paddle I would choose. And if I'm going to spend $200, I would sure hope it has good spin because there's plenty of paddles much cheaper that get great spin. So, yeah, that's what I would say about Adidas. Next up, Franklin. We're going to give them a hard F. Everyone knows why. The Franklin STK is not good. The original Franklin signature paddle, I don't even know why you would play with that paddle anymore. There's, again, so many other better paddles for the price. So, yeah, Franklin just gets an F. 6-0, I think everyone knows this is going to be S for me. I like those paddles a lot. I think they're fantastic. I'm still waiting with this new batch of paddles to see what the delamination rate is. It sounds like they've made some great improvements. They have shared videos and stuff of their paddles on a swinging machine that's doing some durability testing, and they've talked about that a little bit, so that's at least promising. But the paddles, the new ones, haven't been out long enough for us to really know if it's fixed. I still have 2 that get played with pretty regularly, and neither of them have broken. One of them has been in use for 3 or so months now, so that's a good sign to me, but I don't really know. Most of the ones that I've heard delaminating were the original batch paddles. It's ones that people got in January or February, and then right around now they're starting to break. So it's hard to talk about that when those are the old ones. I also don't hear that many reports. I just hear the ones that do talk about it are pretty loud. So I don't know. We'll see. But for me, I love how that paddle plays, and it gets S. Engage, I'm going to give a B. They're not far from C, but I do think I can give them B pretty comfortably. So the Engage Ultra, I think that was pretty much a flop if you ask me. It's overpriced. It's not that different. But the paddles do regularly go on sale, or they have some blemish sales where you can pick them up for anywhere between like $100 and $160. And I think the original Pursuit is still a decent enough paddle, especially if you don't care about spin. The way they feel is just really satisfying, and they do have a lifetime warranty, so that's a nice perk. Now, my mixed doubles partner, though, I think she's on her 3rd warranty for a loose edge guard, so that seems to happen a lot. So you might actually be utilizing that lifetime warranty because of the edge guards. So durability-wise, but I do think they play okay, and if you can get one on sale, it's actually a pretty decent paddle. All right, Hudef, I'm going to give a B. They could almost be A, but I'm still just a little turned off after the Viva Pro, where it broke in like 2 or 3 days. I also never got a follow-up on the paddles that I sent back, even though I was reassured many times, like, hey, these paddles don't break, these paddles don't break. And then they come out with a Gen 2 version of the Viva Pro, and one of the things advertised was a stronger core, which to me indicates that it was an issue with the first one, even though they kept telling me it wasn't. Only reason they're getting B, and they could almost be A, almost, they would be so close, is the Apex Pro, which is not thermoformed, so you shouldn't have to worry about core crushing and all of that. That's actually a really good paddle for the price. I think with a discount code, you can get it somewhere in the $70 range or so, which for $70, that's also a really good paddle. To be honest, for that price, I might even put it up above the Adidas. It would be really close, but I probably would. So keep that in mind. But I'm just a little salty about the Viva Pro still. So I don't have a great view of Hudef for my own personal opinion. Next up, we have Volair. I'm going to go ahead and put them in A. I think they did a great job with the Mach 1 Forza, specifically in terms of value, much better than last year when they had their original Mach 1, not the Forza. because that was like $160, and it just, that's around the time some of these other cheaper paddles were coming out, and yeah, that the value just wasn't great. But now, you know, you get the extra band in the box, you get an extra overgrip, you get the paddle eraser, you get the paddle head cover, and with a discount code, it's like $160. So I actually think for a thermoformed paddle, it's in a pretty good spot for price. And then you get all the extra stuff inside of it, which, you know, bumps the value up a little bit. And I did like the Forza Mach 1. I could easily go to a tournament with it and be completely fine. Legacy, I'm putting them in B. In my raw carbon fiber tier list video, they were S, I believe. But there's just been so many issues with the Legacy Pro, it feels like. I have a guy here who has done 3 warranties, I believe. I can't remember if he actually submitted a 4th or not. But he just kept breaking them. It was like the first one was like 2 weeks, then it was a week, then it was 2 days. And it just feels like more often than not, when I come across a Legacy, it's broken rather than not being broken. So I just think with the durability issues I consistently see, I just can't put it up very high. The paddle, I think, plays great when it's not broken. But as soon as it breaks, which seems to happen regularly and kind of fast, that's what happens. Now, there are plenty of people in my Discord who have been using Legacies for a while, and it sounds like it's been going great. So if you're one of those people, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. Keep using the paddle if it works for you. But all the people that I am around regularly, the paddle's always broken. So that's why it gets B. All right, Gamma, this is another C. I don't know what Gamma's doing. They waited who knows how long, like a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years to come out with the Obsidian, when everyone has a raw carbon fiber paddle and it sounds like it's just a cold mold general Gen 1 raw carbon fiber paddle. And I think it's around the 150, 160 price point. So while I haven't personally hit it, I've not heard anyone rave about that paddle. The only people who I've probably heard talk about it are sponsored players. So it just feels like an easy C for me. It doesn't seem like they've done anything, and the rest of their lineup just isn't that special. I don't know, it just kind of feels like Gamma isn't trying. Ouya is a company that most of you haven't heard about, and I'll have a review of this paddle this month. I'm gonna put them in B, and the main reason for that is because the paddle is very niche. There is a group of people who is absolutely going to love this paddle, but the vast majority of the market, I don't think it's for them. And that's because their Obsidian Max is a raw carbon fiber thermoformed paddle with a 7-inch handle. And it has a swing weight of 111, which is crazy that it can have that long of a handle and be so low. Like, that's actually just insane to me. The problem is the sweet spot is a little bit smaller because you don't have the head size, and I just don't think that many people actually need a 7-inch handle. But I give them props for trying that out because no one in the market was trying that, and I think tennis players coming in who really like their two-handed backhand would really appreciate that paddle. So I actually think it's kind of fun to use, and I like it. I probably would not choose it as my main, and I don't think a lot of people would, but there's definitely a market for it. So B for me. Selkirk, I'm going to put them in A. So they've been in a interesting spot as of lately, I would say. So, you know, they're still rolling with the Power Air. They've still got the 002, which is what most of their pros use. They just launched the 005, which I think was horrible. 006, I actually liked it a lot, but the problem is at $333, I'm like, okay, you can get 3 Vatic Pro prisms. You could get almost 2 6-0s. You know, the value for your dollar is not quite there. Even though it's a great paddle, I don't think it's great enough to spend $333 on it. And I think if I was spending my own money, I would choose paddles from this S category right here rather than spending that $333. I think if money is of no concern, then 006, great paddle. But if you care about money at all, then, you know, that's where it's going to get a little dicey. So who knows, maybe the production model of the 003 will be really solid, but I just don't feel like Selkirk is S tier right now. I'm going to go ahead and put Diadem in B. So it's really interesting looking at them as a company. So they launched the Warrior V2 this year, which was, I didn't really love it, but I think there's probably a market for it. But then the price was also kind of high. And now they've got the Warrior 18K Edge that they've got coming out soon. I actually got to hit that paddle. It's going to be $230. It's got exposed polymer in the handle, which is just a crime. Like, at $230, what are you thinking? Not having something as basic as the handle feel good. Like, there is just zero excuse not to put something to cover that up. I know I talk about this all the time, guys, but like, when you get to that price range, why is it not covered? Like, the Vatic Pro Prism, $100. It's covered. It's not that hard to cover it up. So go ahead and cover it up, guys. The spin, talking to some people, it sounds like the spin's going to be really good. I got to hit with it at first glance, and I didn't have one to directly compare. It really didn't seem that different from the original Warrior Edge, except that maybe it was getting more spin. I didn't have it long enough to get to run a spin test on it. I will say, the Icon V2, I actually thought that paddle was kind of fun. I haven't really gotten to a review on it, but I think that paddle is pretty fun, and I liked it a lot better than their Icon V1. So, I don't know. Diadem's just in a weird spot. I think they generally have unique concepts, which I really like, but then the pricing is just really high, or the performance isn't quite there. Kind of like the Warrior V2. I just don't really... I don't know. I just didn't think it performed that special for the price. Ronbus, I'm going to go ahead and put them in S tier. The owner is just a really smart guy. He clearly knows his stuff. There's been a lot of things that we've had conversations about just in the paddle market, and I'm impressed with how much he knows. He knows a lot. His paddles have been killer. They're not overpriced. They're in a really good spot. I anticipate seeing more innovative things from Ronbus in the future, and their paddles have just been good. Like, their R1 Pulsar is a fantastic paddle. I think with the discount code, it's about $150 if memory serves me right. So yeah, they just make good paddles at good price points, and I expect they'll do more of that in the future. All right, Spartus, this is a really tough one because I've gotten to hit their Ballista for about half a game, and early signs is that I was pretty impressed, but I haven't gotten enough yet for me to feel confident doing that. So I might have to place them in B for now, but there's a very high likelihood that they will bump up to A with the Ballista. I just think it had quite a good sweet spot for being edgeless. The swing weight was 110, which is very low. The paddle had a pretty satisfying pop. I'm gonna say B for now, but just know that when I review it next month, there's a good chance based off my early impressions that they would bump up to A. But just based on like the Gladius, which is in that $100 price point range, it's a good paddle, but it's not, I wouldn't go crazy over it. So I'd go ahead and put them in B for now, but just know, good chance I go to A. All right, so Pickleball Apes, these are a new company, and they've started generating buzz. After John Q's review, a bunch of you have asked me about this paddle. I am probably going to review it in September after I clear my queue of some other paddles. I have gotten to hit this paddle for quite a few games now, and early impressions that for the price, it's about $150, I think $135 with the discount code. It's pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with how it plays. I think tennis players coming into the sport would love this because it has a 6¼ inch handle. It's just overall a pretty good paddle, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in A. I think it's got a good value. I think it's got good performance, and I wouldn't be surprised if I feel even more that way after I get to hit it some more. Also, they do have a $60 or $70 paddle, the Neo, which I got to hit it a tiny bit. It feels pretty good for a paddle in that price range, and it looks like it's raw carbon fiber, but if you put it under a microscope, it looks kind of like a Franklin STK. The spin is really bad on it, but I think, if you're a beginner getting in, you don't really care about spin, so it might be a good option. But I'm mostly basing that off of their Pro Line Energy paddle. All right, next up we have Ace Pickleball, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in C. Pretty much same reasons as whenever I talked about them last. I just think their original raw carbon fiber paddle is overpriced at $200. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think it's just a soft raw carbon fiber paddle for $200. So I don't know why you'd buy that when you could buy this or any other paddle for that price range. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of options. Like Bison is $100, similar options. I don't know. I'm not that impressed with it. They do also have their new Diamond paddle, which I hit a little bit. Kind of just felt like Nomex to me. It was loud. It didn't feel that forgiving, but I have seen some results with some of their pros and it's looking like it's going pretty well. So maybe that paddle needs to be revisited, but at least based off the original paddle they launched, C, and from the brief impression of the Kevlar paddle, I didn't really care for it. So yeah. Pro Kennex, I would go ahead and put them in A. I think they do a good job making paddles. I do wish they would make more elongated options, something with a longer handle, which might be what that white black ace is. I haven't heard that much about it, but it kind of seems like that's what it might be. I also just liked the black ace in general. It was a fun paddle after I added lead tape. And also just with their beads thing, while I can't necessarily prove one way or another that it works or doesn't work, I hear from a lot of people that it works for them. And I think that's different, unique, and if it's working, good job. All right, next we've got Pro Kennex. Now this is interesting. I'm actually having another Zane signature paddle sent to me because I've been hearing how much it has been getting challenged at every single PPA tournament. Even some of the pros I talk to who are not sponsored by ProXR have been talking about how insane the spin is on that. And so I just wonder if like the first one I got was a dud, because I've definitely felt ones with my hand in the wild that were much rougher. So I have a lot of questions about that, because if it's getting as insane of spin as people claim, that could bump them up. For me, overall, ProXR is somewhere between a C and a B brand. Really, the only paddle I think they have that is probably worth checking out is Zane's paddle. That's what could bump them to B, but the rest of their lineup I would just call C. So because they do have a good paddle, I'm going to go with B, and they have the option of going up if the paddle is as insane as some of these people are claiming. We'll find out, because mine definitely was not anything to write home about in terms of spin. All right, so we don't have that many left. Let's go ahead and do Revolin. This one is tricky, and it's just unfortunate timing that this is when I decided to make the video. But when I was getting their logo, I learned that they actually have a new Pro line paddle, which I believe is going to sell for about 220 bucks. It looks like the concept they're going for is similar to a raw carbon fiber paddle, but I haven't gotten to try it, and I don't know when I'm going to get to try it. So I'm going to have to go ahead and put them in. Man, this is tough. Okay, I'm going to base it off of the Revo Pure Control, the one that I have hit, and the price. I would put them in C. I think they have the option to go up to B or A, depending on this Pro line paddle, but from the ones I have hit, I would just put it in C. I think they have a cool mission. I think that's awesome, but if you're just looking at performance and value of the paddle, I would currently put that at C. All right, Niupipo, I'm going to go ahead and put them in F. I mean, maybe the only standout thing they have is the cheap Amazon packs, which would be great if you're getting into pickleball, but in terms of performance paddles, that's a pretty big F. All right, Bison, I'm going to go ahead and put them in B. Similar reason as Hudef. They make, $100-ish raw carbon fiber paddle. If, they have the thickness and handle length option you want, it's not that it's a bad paddle. It's not that special to me. ProDrive, also going to get a B for me. I personally did not like the Ghost. I was informed that the Ghost plays a lot better if you add lead tape, so I might check that out. And then the ProDrive, the raw carbon one, it's just so heavy. I think it was like 130 swing weight. So if you're a tennis player, man, you might be able to swing that thing and have no issue, but for me, that thing is heavy. I just don't think I'd be able to play with it. I don't think it's a bad paddle. I think if you're buying that thing, it's a 19 millimeter, 3-layer core. It's going to be thick. It's going to be heavy. But for me, I don't think I could go compete very well with it. My hand speed would be even slower than it already is. All right, for PikNinja, I'm probably going to have to put them in C. I actually think the paddle is fine. There's nothing that's wrong with the paddle. It's just that, again, when you have companies like Vatic that are just killing everyone in price, you've also got Bison, you've got Spartus, and Hudef that are doing these really cheap raw carbon fiber paddles. It's just hard to want to spend $160 on a Gen 1 raw carbon fiber paddle when you've got these. So they're not getting C because the paddle is bad. It's just that there's pricing of other ones that you're going to get similar performance at a cheaper price. All right, bread and butter and GRUVN. I think these are both pretty easy Bs overall. So I have hit the GRUVN Move-In a very small amount, not enough that I can really give you guys a great opinion. You know, I kind of just dinked around with it. I can tell it's going to be another good thermoformed paddle, but durability remains to be seen, and pricing, it's in a fine spot. I think some of their older paddles might be a little higher on the price scale now with some of the other companies I mentioned, but they do have a lot of variety. So if you're looking for something with like a long handle and a weird shaped head or just something, GRUVN's probably got you covered. And then bread and butter, similar thing, you know, it's, I think, a cheaper Carbon 1X, so it's a good paddle, but really that's the only paddle they have right now that I think is probably worth checking out. The Filth is good, but you know, I don't know. For me, it's a little heavy on the swing weight, so for me it'd be a little harder to go to a tournament with. It's not that I couldn't. I can play with a high swing weight paddle, but it's just not my first option. So they get beat. So yeah, there you guys go. This was a pretty long video, but that is my tier list of paddles. You can take it for what it's worth to you. I don't think it's something that you guys need to take that seriously, but these are just probably the order that I would rank brands in for my own personal use. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below, so let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.